Hello, I'm Talon and I'm the Edgy Skater. And we are now about to do our unexpected part 3 of things I wish I knew as an amateur competitive skater. Alright, so in part 2, we didn't get too far, but we did cover different technical skating styles within figure skating. So we talked about the two main caps between Eastern and Western European style figure skating. And without specifically naming any, we talked about at least the idea that there are sub categories within that. All right. And then we also talked about going to different kinds of skating events. So, not necessarily competitions specifically, but different kinds of workshops, seminars, meetups, training camps, or like short, long weekend camps, things like that, to meet different kinds of people, get exposed to different kinds of technical skating styles, and kind of learn from different coaches who've been brought up in different styles to see how they kind of compare and contrast against what you're familiar with, and how between that and meeting new people, making new connections within the skating community, that can be a very beneficial and enriching experience for you. And how even if you need to travel to do this, it's probably going to be really well worth it, and you'll be glad you did. All right. And then lastly, we talked about trying different equipment brands to see what's out there. If you've been kind of, again, stuck trying to learn things and something's not quite working, sometimes a change of brand can be beneficial. We just don't want to be chasing trends in brands simply because someone we like or look up to is using a different kind of equipment than we are. And I don't know if the audio is going to pick this up, but I do have cats in this room. So if you hear one of them meowing, that's what that is. That is my cat Scotty, who is a little mischief maker and just wants to make his presence known. All right, so moving on to part 3. Next on the list, and I think this is a big one, especially for former skaters that are returning adults, um, which is the very important concept that worthiness is not tied to placements. Your worth as a person is not tied to placements, and your worth and abilities as a skater are not tied to placements. Sometimes placements can be a an honest reflection of where we stacked up on a particular day against particular individuals. Sometimes it's not always that accurate, but in either case, it does not measure your worthiness as an individual. And even if you came dead last in something, it does not mean that your skating sucks. It there's a variety of things that can influence how you perform on a particular day. But whether you performed really well or you knew you could have done better, that's still all separate than your worthiness as a figure skater and as a person, encompassing and also outside of that. So that's something that I think is really hard for some of us to understand. Um, and I think it's a lesson that is not uncommon for people to pick up. So even if you didn't learn that from figure skating in the past, maybe there was something else that you did as a kid or later on in life where you picked up that message. You know, my worth is tied to my ability to do XYZ. Ergo, my worth as a person is tied to my ability to do XYZ. Therefore, said result, review, whatever, is my worthiness as a being. That's not true. And I know I'm not spending the time that this requires. This actually requires so much time. I believe it deserves to be its own very special episode. But I just want to say it's not. You are worthy, regardless of your skating ability, and your skating is probably a lot better than you realize it is, regardless of whatever that latest placement or title or lack thereof or score sheet or whatever says. So I just want to put that out there. No matter what, you are worthy. All right. Moving right along. All right. Okay. There are ways to stay in the figure skating industry, the broader industry, even if you cannot be on ice. Or if you are looking for a way to stay involved in the skating industry, even if you are still on ice, I just want to let you know there are plenty of ways to do that. In fact, there are a lot of ways, way more ways than I'm going to be able to think of off the top of my head and summarize right here. But gosh, there's so many ways you can get involved in your local club, spearheading different kinds of projects, events, organizations for your rink, ways to try to bring skaters together. If you're looking for like a job like a paycheck under someone else, there are all of the skating and equipment and apparel brands. There's the different organizations, associations, and federations. There's pretty much any job you can think of in the non skating world, there is a skating equivalent version of that job in the broader figure skating industry. So if you want to be even more involved in skating or stay involved, but you can't continue to physically skate, there are a plethora, a almost unlistable amount of opportunities to do that. And, worst case, if you cannot find something hiring around you, but you're passionate enough about it, you can, on the grassroots level, get it going and then see where it can get picked up from there, or maybe even grow and evolve it and upscale it into something that you are now basically the head boss of, and you will be hiring people one day to help you out with whatever it is you're trying to pursue. So, lots of options. Um, I will say skate fitters and skate sharpeners, if that side of it really interests you, um, it's typically an apprenticeship sort of industry. So if that's something you're really interested in, we're always looking for more qualified people in those categories. And your reputable skate shop, skate technician, and fitter, you might be able to work something out with them to begin an apprenticeship under them. It may not be paid necessarily. Apprenticeships typically aren't in the general sense of the word, but leave that up to that individual shop or person to determine. Um, but that is an area that we are always looking for more qualified professionals. Lots of options to stay involved in the sport while not necessarily physically participating in the sport itself, at least all the time. Okay, so kind of similar to that is side hustles to help you pay for your training. So the things implied above can do that. Those can be part time or full time things. Or if you just kind of want at least something you're planning on in the beginning, staying kind of a small thing, we always need people that know how to sew, alter clothes, or make clothing. We also need music editors, big time. Now, sometimes coaches will do it. Oftentimes, coaches will at least have a heavy hand or say in how the music is best to be edited to fulfill different requirements and highs and lows of a given program. But not every coach knows how to operate the software to do it. Oftentimes, they'll outsource that to someone else. And if you want to make a little bit of money, you can edit music for like 15-ish dollars a track, and that's money that can help go towards your own training in some capacity. If you want to get into the costuming side, there there can be a lot of money in that. A lot of outfits, not that they need to be necessarily, but a lot of outfits you see on TV, for instance, are anywhere between the lower side being around 800 US dollars up to 3,000 US dollars. And most every skater is going to need at least two a season. That's not counting show costumes, that's not counting different kinds of practice wear. And if you really compete a lot, or you're working through multiple programs, or you do multiple disciplines, those all need outfits too. So there is a lot of side money potentially to be made uh, getting into that if you have the time for it. It's going to be a bit more time intensive than music editing, because those are always two things that I don't know any skating club that would turn down someone who wanted to help take that workload away. And there's participating in Learn to Skate programs. That's usually a paid thing you can do. Even possibly working the skate rental uh, area of your local ice rink for like public skating. There's things like that. There's a bunch of niche little things. If you want to go on the more independent route, making custom skate soakers and little skate wiping. I want to say blankets for a second, but I can't think of the right word. But you know that the nice cloth thing that you use to dry your blades. Um, a lot of people make custom matching sets between that cloth and the soakers. Um, I had something that I haven't seen on the market in a really, really long time, but they were individual skate bags that, so I had my main skate bag that I brought things in my skates. Each had their own individual drawstring, terry cloth lined, fun fabric on the outside, little bag that held each skate. So it continued to help try to pull out and wick away moisture, and it kept the skates from bumping into each other or rubbing off on scuffing each other, or if for some reason a soaker were to become dislodged in travel or whatnot, the blade's not going to ram into the other skate or anything. So it kept them really pristine. And I had those like little individual skate drawstring bags for, oh, well, they've lasted decades, honestly, and you just throw them in the wash. So that's actually a product I would like to see people make, and make more of a thing, is to bring that product back. I don't know why the bigger companies haven't jumped on it really, but that would be a cool gift and something that maybe you could start your own little business idea with and make those for your local skaters. You could match it with the cloth and the soaker set. It could be a really cool idea. All right, so that's just you know small handful of examples of ways you can make side money to facilitate your own skating needs. Okay, all right. So the next thing I have is talking to your local rink or club to start creating and putting on certain types of events, like the ones I mentioned that you might have to travel further away to if your rink does not have a system already to provide them. So it's going to be a organizational thing. If you have a skating club, they'll likely want you to go through them. You might not exactly have to, depending on the logistics. It might be the difference between using club ice for this versus buying private ice and then having whatever instructional guest you're bringing in slash club skaters use private ice. There's a couple ways you can work it out, and you would work it out between the rink manager and the skating club. At the ultimate least, the rink manager. But if there's some sort of like a social thing, it's in the metropolitan area, you don't live in that area, it's 3 hours away, but you're like, fuck, I really, I don't know if I can say that. You're like, well, heck, I'd really like to be able to, have something like that near me. Great. You can try to host said event where you are, get someone with a bigger name to come. All you have to do is reach out to them. You're basically contacting them to do a venue, like, any other type of coach or rank anyone else would reach out to do. This is how a lot of professionals make at least a portion of their money, is traveling around and participating in different kinds of events and teaching big group classes of skaters. So that is something you can absolutely organize, um, whether it's more single-handedly spearheaded or again you're working with a skating club to do it, and you can advertise out to areas further than yours to try to get a bigger draw for it and try to promote it in advance. But if your club rink doesn't have the things you want, I'm a very big advocate in being the change you want to see. You can look at what it would take to put it on yourself and to get a good enough crowd. You might even be able to make this a annual or semi-annual thing. And I would imagine that a lot of coaches would be really supportive about the idea. But, you know, that was the other thing. Be the change you want to see. Bring events to you instead of always going out to them when possible. All right. So, haha, okay. So now we're getting back into bringing outside professionals into your skating journey. So this one is about having a good relationship with some kind of physical therapist. Now, this gets a little bit tricky. Most physical therapists, even sports physical therapists specifically, they're not familiar with skating. They might be familiar enough with hockey. Figure skating is very different than hockey. Some of the best physical therapists I ever had actually were not sports physical therapists, they were dance physical therapists. But there's also a lot of dancers who get their doctorate in physical therapy. So even if they are not technically advertising as a dance specific physical therapist, their prior dance background can really inform their physical therapy or sports rehab physical therapy. I strongly encourage, if you are able, as part of the broader off ice training regime, bringing in a physical therapist, ideally one that has some kind of dance background or educational informing, into your on ice team. This is going to really help prevent injuries, mitigate injuries early on should they arise. It's going to help you with that discerning, what's regular training pain versus what is potential or new injury pain. It's one of the most important things you can learn, is how to distinguish different kinds of pain. And unfortunately, it's something that you can only kind of do through experience. But as an adult, you've likely already got injured at some point in your life that had nothing to do with the ice. So you might already have a little bit of a heads up. This is one of the areas where adults have, in my opinion, an advantage over kids. Kids probably haven't gotten that injured yet. They don't necessarily know the differences. Adults, more life experience, probably got some kind of injury at some point. Hopefully, will help you discern a little bit better than a child would be able to. But having someone that can help rehab that or strengthen you to make that less likely, which a certain amount of off ice conditioning will help do, but specifically having that kind of a doctor on your team, it really can go a long way. And I'm even going to kind of throw in as like a bonus professional, um, a properly licensed massage therapist. And I would ask around in your local dance community, contacting dance companies and asking who they recommend for physical therapy and for even massage therapy. So that was kind of a nice one, bringing a professional on board. Right in line I have with that is, I did not understand the importance of a sports nutritionist when I was an amateur skater. If you're just getting into skating or back into skating, I would not worry about this right away. But at some point, as you begin to train harder, as things get more demanding, as your body starts taking on more wear, and recovery is not as easy and quasi comfortable as it used to be, if you can, I strongly encourage you to look into hiring or seeing if your insurance already covers working with a sports nutritionist. The main point of it, food fuel for the body, is going to help with recovery and fueling you to get through the things you need to do without getting injuries due to breakdown and lack of recovery. So, a lot of skaters are not quite hitting the macro and micro nutritional requirements they need. It's not about trying to starve yourself. Most of it's just underestimating how physically demanding the sport is. And a sports nutritionist, particularly one that works with figure skaters, is going to be able to help make sure that's not a problem for you. And if there are bone density issues and things like that, they can help restore that to a degree through nutrition. And I believe, I have to double check, and I encourage you to do your research on this, but I believe the USFSA has a list of like different kinds of off ice professionals and supporting types of doctors. You could ask your local figure skating club who they recommend in this. If your club is big enough, they're going to know people. If your club does not know people, then you can literally start Googling sports nutritionalists in your area. Or again, you can contact a local dance company and start asking around in that kind of community circle, who do they go to for nutrition? If it's good enough for dance, it's probably pretty good for skating. If it's not going to cover, it's going to be damn near pretty good. And that will help, you know, at least get a foot in the door in a better way than doing nothing if you're finding that, your training recovery is not the same as it used to be and you're starting to have more fatigue issues and muscles are just not repairing appropriately after practices. All right, almost towards the end. Uh, yeah, I have learned the difference between training and injury pain. I kind of already covered that, so I'm not going to say anything else on it. And then, yeah, I already talked about having mental health professionals, sports psychologists, or just any mental health professional to help you get through the ups and downs of skating and skating culture stuff. And if need be, forming healthy relationships and associations with it if there has been damage in the past. Okay, and oh, yeah, no. The last thing I had was writing sports nutritionist. All right, we finally made it through. We have covered everything. I hope you stuck, you know, through to the end of this part 3 of things I wish I knew as a amateur competitive skater and enjoyed it. I hope you have a good rest of your day. And if there's anything that you thought that this list did not cover and that you would like to add, please feel free. Put it in the comments. If there's anything in the list that I've covered that you want to hear more detail in particular, let me know. Have a good rest of your day and have a good skate. Bye.